I just didn't know drag kings existed before that. And I had a very limited idea of what drag was before. Like, I watched RuPaul's Drag Race and I knew about drag queens, but I just literally didn't know that drag kings existed. And I also didn't know that people who are not gay men could do drag.
Hello, my name is Kay Anderson and you are listening to Lost Spaces, the podcast that mourns the death of queer nightlife. Every episode I talk to a different person about a venue from their past, the memories that they created there, and the people that they used to know. So you have probably picked up, if you have listened to this show for any period of time, that I have mixed feelings when it comes to the term representation. And I'm doing air quotes when I say that. And I still can't quite articulate exactly why I feel a bit iffy about it, but I think it's something to do with the commodification of the term. Like, yes, no one can disagree that representation is important, but it seems like it's been hijacked and monetized by people. And yes, I'm pointing at you TikTok influencers, which I just kind of find a bit icky, if you know what I mean. But you are not here to listen to my half-baked ponderings about representation. You are here to listen to a chat about a lost space. So why the hell am I going on and on about this? Well, it's because I want you to know that I'm not just a cynical Sally. I mean, I am a cynical Sally, but I'm not just a cynical Sally. And share with you a story about how representation opened up my guests' world and made them realize that, first of all, drag kings were a thing and that they exist. And second of all, that actually they're a drag king. And that guest is the German drag king Maria Moschus. Now, Maria was first born after Maria's alter ego Taiina saw the film Venus Boys, which is all about drag kings. But it wasn't until a trip to Buenos Aires, where Taiina went for an internship in 2019, where the character really got to come into their own, growing and developing at Carrera de Reyes, a drag king night that ran from 2019 until 2022. We talk all about that night, the magic and the chaos of being in a new city, so magical, and how not to be stifled by drag stereotypes. How did you end up in Buenos Aires? I can never say it properly.
Buenos Aires.
Well, I always want to give it like the va-va-voom and be like Buenos Aires, but I feel like a bit of a twat when I say that. Anyway, sorry. So how did you end up there?
I actually went there because I did an internship at the German embassy, which was very random because, I don't know, like 2 years before I got there, I was very like lost in my life, didn't know what to do, didn't know what kind of work I wanted to do. And I was studying social anthropology and I was just like applying for a bunch of internships because like, I don't know, if I don't know what to do, I'm just going to try a bunch of things. And then 1.5 years later, the embassy, which was one of the places where I applied, sent me an email and was like, yeah, the cultural department in Buenos Aires would like to give you an internship of like 8 weeks. And at that time, I was actually like not that lost anymore. And I also knew that I wouldn't want to work at an embassy at all. Like I was like, why did I even apply? What was happening in my mind there? But then there was this like reason and opportunity to be abroad and to go to a place that I didn't know. And also I learned a little bit of Spanish before. And I was like, that's also kind of nice to like have a reason to speak Spanish again. And then I just decided to do the internship. It like didn't give me a lot of money, but like some money. And so I was like, I'll just do it. But I already knew that I didn't do it for the internship and more for the experience of being in Buenos Aires and like getting to know the city and people. But that was the reason I went.
So you went there just knowing that it was going to be an 8 week in, out, go home.
Yes and no. I'm like, the internship was 8 weeks, but I booked my flight back, I think like 4 months after I arrived. So my plan was to have like half the time working and then half the time doing whatever. I think in the beginning I was still also thinking maybe I'm just gonna travel and not even stay in Buenos Aires the last 2 months, which in the end I ended up staying there most of the time.
Okay. So talk to me about those first days there. So you've landed in Buenos Aires. Oh, I'm still saying it badly. You landed there. You were like, oh, I'm not so hot on this internship, but I'll give it a go. And it gives me a reason to be here. Do you remember what your first impressions of the city were?
I do remember. The funny thing was that I arrived on like a Thursday, and Friday, weirdly enough, was my first working day. Oh. I also remember that everyone in the office was like, why do you start working on Friday? I was like, I don't know. I don't know how. But that Friday was also my birthday, which is the 31st of May. So that was like such a weird day because it was like my first day in Buenos Aires, my first day working at the embassy. It was my birthday. And so I was like really like confused by how this birthday went, because like all the usual rituals of like my friends and the birthday cake, they were like out of the window. I remember that I was very anxious because in general, I am a confident person, but like in new situations, it takes me a while to not be like super awkward. Like in the office, I don't know. Sometimes it even like freaks me out to ask where's the bathroom or stuff like that. I don't know. I don't want to. I avoid sometimes these kind of little conversations, and then I like wander around in the office.
And you have to like emotionally warm up to it, right? Like you have to talk yourself into asking someone how to get to the toilet, and then you just feel like an idiot. Yeah. Oh, I know exactly how that feels.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it was a day with a lot of that, and also like, I don't know. I remember getting to the office by bus, but then I kind of didn't know how the bus system worked. You need like this kind of card to get there, and then tried to ask the bus driver in Spanish where I had to get off to get there and there. And there was just like a lot of this like awkwardness that day. But actually it was also kind of nice because it was my birthday. People were very like, and also the first day, people in the office were actually very nice. And like there was like other interns who I warmed up to quicker. And also because it was my birthday, I was like in this mood of like, okay, after the office day, I have to treat myself with something. And before I got to Buenos Aires, I actually researched a lot about the queer culture and queer scene and about drag, because just a few months before that, I started doing drag. So I was really like in the zone of like, I want to learn something new. I'm in the drag zone. Like, what do they have there? It's a big city. They have to have a lot of shows and opportunities. And actually, on that Friday, there was a drag king show, and I saw that on Instagram, and I like already knew from the beginning that like on my birthday I'm gonna be there at this drag king show, and so I did that in the evening also.
Okay, we're gonna get to the drag show because I know that's what we're here to talk about. You've talked a lot about your first impressions of the workplace and how it was being awkward in there. Talk to me about the city though. What vibes did you get, and how did it feel to be there?
I think that's funny for me to think about now, because now I feel like I know the city quite well. Like I actually recently visited again, like this January and February. So I feel like somehow now it has like this home feeling sort of for me. So it's a bit hard for me to remember exactly what it was in the beginning. But I remember it being very full, especially like these bus situations where you're like, there's like thousands of buses, thousands of people who want to get somewhere, and you're in the middle of that, like this typical big city feeling. But I also remember it to be like very wide. The streets are big, like the streets are not so narrow. I feel like for me in Buenos Aires, you don't feel like very enclosed. You know, like some cities, you're really like, I don't know, the streets are very narrow and like the buildings are high and you're like in between. And I didn't get that feeling from Buenos Aires. It was very opened up, like the streets open up in a way, I think. And I do feel like there's like in general like a open vibe sort of. I don't know why, but it's hard for me to say it without a comparison. And I mean, this is obviously just my very personal impression. But before that, I've been in Santiago de Chile. And I remembered comparing it a lot to that, because that was like my personal impression of another city abroad in South America. And I remember it being, I think, more open, like the people and the vibe of the people more open than in Santiago. It felt to me that Santiago was a bit more like structured in a way, but also a bit more like bam, 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 people going there, there, there. And I feel like Buenos Aires was more like a little bit more confusing and like, but also in that sense of confusion, and like there was also like a nice open vibe and like this more exploring vibe. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's...
So like a bit more chaotic and fun, bustling.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe that's a good word.
So, okay, I'm not going to make some assumptions. I'm going to talk to you about some stereotypes about German people.
Please.
And ask you how German you really are.
Okay, I'm very curious.
So Germans like rules and order. How accurate would that statement be?
I think it's very accurate. And I think, I mean, obviously there's always exception to the rules, blah, 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 blah. But I think when I compare myself with other Germans, I'm, in that sense, in other senses, I'm very German. But in that sense, I'm not very German.
Oh, okay.
I'm also always late. I'm never anywhere on time.
Oh, do you know what I have to say?
Yeah.
I got here early today because I was like, oh no, she's German.
See, that would not have been necessary. Not for me. No. No, I have the worst time management ever. My room is very chaotic. My calendar is very chaotic. I also like chaotic energy. I think I get very stressed out when people around me are when they plan things and when they're very structured. Then I'm like, I feel the pressure of also, I don't know, having that standard or something. But
okay.
it's funny because actually in Buenos Aires, I always enjoyed that I would always be late. And here in Germany, I do feel bad because people are upset if you're like 10 minutes late. And then in Buenos Aires, I would be 10 minutes late, 15 minutes late. But the others always would be like half an hour late. And I was like, oh, wow.
Suddenly I'm the early one.
Yes. And I felt great. Like I was honestly not even bothered because it was like a stress relief. Because here I'm like always running everywhere because I'm always late and I don't want to make people wait. But it's like, and then there I just wasn't running. I was like, oh, I'm 15 minutes late, but it's going to be fine. The others are going to be later. So yeah, I think they would still call me very German. Like they would still say you're very German. You're like just 10 minutes late. But in Germany, people would maybe be like, you're 10 minutes late all the time. So that's not very German. So I think it's a question of perspective.
Grading on a curve. Okay, so the question I was going to ask was, did that then feel really stressful and alien when you were in a city that was a bit looser and a bit more open? But it sounds like that's not the case.
No, I don't think so. I think I was stressed about the Spanish and I was stressed about this, like, I don't know how to get around, all these things that you have to learn when you're in a new city. But I don't think I was particularly stressed by the chaotic energy. No, I don't.
Not even on the buses?
Let me think.
Because I have to say, I like chaos, right? Like I'm quite okay with chaos. But when it comes to queuing, and when I think I'm in a certain position in a queue and someone pushes in, I can't handle it.
Yeah. No, that's stressful, definitely. And it's even more stressful when it's like hot and then you're like in that bus and it's like, I was definitely annoyed by that at some points. But sometimes I also get into that, when you have like a nice song and your headphones on and you get into that main character energy. I think sometimes in these kind of like big city moments, I get into that main character energy and then I'm like, yes, I'm in the full bus, as if like a camera is like on me and I'm like, I'm just trying to get to my job that's like not well paid, this kind of, I don't know, as if I'm in a TV series. And I think sometimes I can even enjoy that. But I mean, I'm definitely, when I'm in a bad mood or like not in that mood, I'm also stressed by the full bus or like also the bus not coming or the bus all of a sudden deciding to go another way. Or like when I was in Buenos Aires now, this time in January, I was very annoyed, but still laughing. So it was like mixed feelings that I had to get this card to get around again, you know, like the bus or subway card. And they didn't sell any. Like nowhere. And I was running around in the whole city, like literally running because I couldn't get on the train or the bus. And I went to the big station, like, and everyone was telling me, maybe you can get it there, maybe you can get it there. And then somebody told me, no, they have like a production shortage. I don't know. We haven't sold these cards in months. And I'm like, but I want to give you money to use the public transport here. What is the matter? Like, this system doesn't make sense. The friend who I was visiting was just laughing at me. Was like, yeah, but what did you expect? Like, it's Argentina, it's Buenos Aires. I was like, yeah, you're right. But I don't know. It doesn't make sense. But it's these kind of moments where you're like, then I was frustrated and annoyed because I was running around all the time. But because I was with my friends from there who are, I think, more used to these kind of like things not working in that way.
Yeah.
I also kind of go into that space, that more relaxed energy, and kind of try to mirror that.
Yeah, that's nice, isn't it? So the full German didn't jump out.
No. Luckily, no.
Shall we go to the space that we're here to talk about today? So you had started talking about your birthday and the drag king night that you went to on your birthday. And before that, you said you'd only recently got into drag. What attracted you to drag in the first place?
Well, actually, it was the movie Venus Boys.
Okay.
It's a movie about drag kings, and I just didn't know drag kings existed before that. And I had a very limited idea of what drag was before. Like, I watched RuPaul's Drag Race, and I knew about drag queens, but I just literally didn't know that drag kings existed. And I also didn't know that people who are not gay men could do drag. As ridiculous as that sounds now to me, because now I'm like, why? What? I mean, of course. But I think still mainstream media has this very limited idea of drag, which is gay men being drag queens.
And trans women just in the last few years.
Yeah, definitely.
So then help me understand this revelation that you had. So you watched the film and then you kind of were like, wow, how did that change your world?
I think it was literally like when in the comic there's like this little light bulb that does like a pling, and then it was literally that. I remember because it was random. I think it was like the week of Christopher Street Day, and then it was like...
And Christopher Street Day, for anyone who doesn't know, is Pride.
Yeah. There were like several events, and we just decided to go to one movie that was showing. So I didn't even know what it was about, really. And we were there, and I was watching, and I was like, wait a second. This is possible. And I was really like, well, this is for me. This is me. This is because I've been doing like some theater things before. I was always kind of the one performing, in quotation marks, like on birthdays for my friends, just like lip syncing randomly to a song. And then I was like, wait, there's a name for that. And then I remember that we watched the movie, and then after the movie we went... It was summer, and we went to eat ice cream, and we went actually to like a big playground with my friends, which is more like a playground also for grown-ups.
Playgrounds for adults exist? What?
Kind of. I mean, this one it's not specifically for adults, but the things you play with, you have like a huge spider net. You realize like it's for people who are taller than toddlers, you know? So
okay.
It's like... But there are still toddlers, but there it was like evening, so then it's when all the grown-ups were there and like playing around more.
Okay, so you don't have to like push the toddlers off.
No. But yeah, we were hanging out there in this like spider web thing, and I remember like telling my friends like, guys, I think that's what I have to do, right? I mean, do we all see that? And then they were like, yeah, that we see that. That is correct. And so that's when I decided that I wanted to do that. And then I started researching for like shows or things where I could perform. It was, funnily enough, I never really did that without a show. Like, I know a lot of people start off with like in their room doing makeup. And I mean, obviously I also did that then. But one of the first things was like searching for a place to do it. Like, I didn't take months just by myself. Like, I was always thinking about an audience when I would start to think about which kind of song could I perform.
Is that because you're like a goal-oriented person who like has to have something to work towards?
I think so. I think so.
Ah.
Sometimes I don't want to admit it to myself. Sometimes I would like to be maybe less capitalistic.
Why? Well,
I don't know. But that's maybe another discussion.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, yeah, I was about to say, like, because that's how I work as well. I'm very much like, I need to set a goal and then I need to work towards it. Otherwise, I just meander and don't do anything.
Yeah. No, I also, it's not that I don't appreciate it. I appreciate it about myself as well, because I think then when I have a goal, then I actually do it. I just feel like sometimes I would love to just create something and give myself more time and space, because when you have like this deadline, then it's always like
the pressure you're putting on yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, like I can't understand those people who just like wake up in the morning and then are like, I'm going to paint today. Like, it doesn't really make sense to my brain.
Yeah, and I mean, I love that for them. It seems nice.
Yes, yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah.
But I have to say, I have one hobby that does that for me, which is doing a puzzle.
Oh, okay.
Like, I love puzzles, and I think that's the one hobby that I have where I don't want to get better, where I don't have a goal.
Yeah.
I just sit down and I do it. It does me really good. So I think it's good that I have this one thing where I also sometimes just get up and do that.
So you're not like, next time I'm going to do a 1,500 piece puzzle and then the next time I'm going to do 5,000 pieces.
Funnily enough, no. And I really think that's the only hobby where I don't have that feeling.
I think I would make that a competition if it was my hobby.
I think there are puzzle competitions, actually. There are people who do that.
Oh, I've got to look that up afterwards.
I saw a TikTok. I saw a TikTok the other day where it's like a huge hall with like people in there and like puzzling against each other, like for who's faster.
Oh, God, that's stressful.
It's very stressful.
I think I want to do it.
Go for it.
Okay, so in developing your drag character, right, you've been to the screening, you've spoken to your friends and you were like, I think this is the path I'm on. And they were all like, well, yeah, of course. How long did it take you to then come up with your name and who your character was? And like, what was the process behind that?
So I don't think I have this particular character. I think I have several characters in drag, depending on what song I'm doing, if it's more comedic or more dramatic. I don't have this, oh yeah, that's me in drag. I think I never had that. I always more developed a specific performance or a specific show and then developed my character around that. And the name was really like, I think also very strategic. I found a show where I could perform and then I needed a name. And then I was thinking about fun things that I would like to incorporate. So I think the first was Moschus, like my last name. And Moschus is, what's the word in English again? Must? Is it must? Or musk? Musk. I think it's
like
musk.
Like the smell.
Exactly, like the scent that's like in like all these very masculine perfumes kind of. And it's actually like originally, I think they don't produce it like that any longer, but originally they produced that scent from the actual balls of a deer.
Is it the balls? I always knew it was from a deer. I have to look this up. Carry on with your story. Sorry.
It is. I looked it up. I promise you that's what they did. And I thought it was the most ridiculous masculine thing that you could do. Like, I had this idea in mind of like, if in this like heteronormative world, a man puts on perfume, then it has to be the scent of a deer's balls, you know? Like,
but can we just take a moment
yes.
to appreciate the person who first discovered this? Or appreciate or like be gobsmacked at like the thought process. Who decided like, do you know what? This smell that's coming out of this deer's balls, I need to put it on my neck.
Yeah, I do appreciate that person a lot, I have to say, because I feel like it must have been a very creative mind or a very horny mind. I don't know. You know, I don't know what happened there.
Horny.
We don't know. I mean, I don't know what happened there. We don't know.
But how did they even convince other people? Like,
That's the question. I don't know.
I feel like this needs to be a film.
You know, I think it has to be a film. And yeah, I just always loved that. I always thought that that's like a spectacular thing. And it's still that smell. Like, even if they don't produce it anymore, it's still that typical smell that we associate with like masculine smell. That's still there. And so I decided to have that as my last name. And then I think for my first name, I liked the idea of I don't know what's that called. Like to have like the M and the M, like to have a first name that
alliteration.
also starts with an yes, thank you, an alliteration in my name. And I think I always liked Maria because it's used so much more, like depending on the culture, as a name for women, but it's actually not. So I don't know. In German, for example, we have like a lot of men who have like second name Maria, like Christoph Maria, for example, is like a classic thing. And in Italy, it's used a lot more for men also. And I think, I don't know, I always found that interesting, that a name that has so many meaning in that like Christian sense, like I'm not Christian, so I don't know a lot about this, but still like it has this very feminine energy of Maria, the mother of Jesus, you know, like this kind of energy. But still, it's like not only used as a name for women. So I don't know, I always found that very interesting about the name. And I think from the beginning, I knew that I would want to be a drag king because I wanted to explore masculinity, but that I also always wanted to play with gender and not necessarily be like very fixated on, the idea of just having like a masculine character in drag.
So I want to better understand what you were saying before about different characters being used for different pieces that you're putting together. Are they all named Maria then?
Yes. I never thought about giving them different names, actually. I think it's always the name, but then it just shows in different forms, yeah.
And so they're not different facets of the same character. They are distinct characters.
You're asking me questions.
I'm sorry.
No, it's not. So the thing is, since all of them are like versions of myself, like of Taiina, I think it's all like parts of the same character in a way, but in drag. Yeah. But they are very far away from each other. So it's not like, this character today is more funny and then the next day is more, I don't know, sad or dramatic or in love or whatever. But it's really like different topics. It's a different, also like I don't have a particular makeup style where you're like, that's me. Yeah. Like, I mean, I think in the end, yes, you will recognize specifics about makeup and clothing, but like very specifics. But it's not this kind of, you know, some people have like, even though they do different perspectives on a character, they still have always the same eyeshadow or the same contouring or these kind of things. Yeah. And I don't even have that. It really depends on the performance, I think.
So is there anything that you would say is a common thread throughout them all?
That's a good question. In a weird way, it could be that even though it's a character, I always try to be very authentic with it. So I guess maybe if you would watch it, I hope, I don't know if it comes across, but I hope that you would notice like an authenticity that comes from within myself, like myself as Taiina, and that is like kind of altered or made bigger through Maria Moschus. But I still try to be very authentic and like truthful with all the performances I do.
And do you... So this isn't necessarily a question that's directed at you and at Maria. It's something that I do think about sometimes, though. This kind of pressure, because of the public perception of what drag is, to be a certain type of drag performer and to be this kind of fun, spirited kind of clown. Do you ever feel the pressure to be that when you're performing, or do you like select the nights you perform at based on a set of criteria that would allow you to be whoever you feel like being that day?
No, I do feel that pressure. I think I have like phases. For example, last year I had a moment where we did like a High School Musical show, and like I like hosted that, and I really enjoyed being a little bit more maybe stereotypical, like being a bit mean, a bit funny, over the top, and I kind of felt that. And I also felt that lightheartedness and bringing fun to people and being in that space. And so I think in that time I just really leaned into that because I also enjoyed that, even though it might be like a stereotype of what drag is about. And obviously, like, I never completely fall into the stereotype because I'm not a drag queen. But from the beginning of this year, I've been like a bit more quiet and a bit more taking things in and like thinking a lot and like a bit more timid, like not in a bad way necessarily, but more like just like there's like this calmness.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because, like, for example, with that High School Musical show that I do that with a bunch of other people and I really enjoy that. And now we will do that again, but now I could still do it in the same way as before, but currently I don't feel like I'm in that space. But now I do have that kind of thing, like there is this certain pressure of thinking like, but the people want and expect something fun and funny and over the top in that way. But actually, if I could change it now, I would just sing them a sad love song or something, you know, like, and I think it's still fun to like get into that zone that I don't feel like I'm in for that performance. I think I can still do that and still have fun with it. But I think for other performances now, I try to like not pressure myself to do something like that because I'm also doing other shows and there I'm now thinking about maybe doing something more emotional or more like going into a different direction. I think it's always kind of a risk because people go to a drag show and they expect that it's fun. But I try to not put myself under that pressure and just decide what I want to do.
And do you feel a pressure to be a certain level of masculine?
I did, but not anymore. I did definitely in the beginning. In the beginning, I thought that I would have to be very masculine. I think in the beginning, I sometimes even thought that if I do like good drag, whatever that should mean, that I would have to be like passing or something.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't have that at all anymore. I think like I'm more to the contrary. I really try to just like follow a certain aesthetic that I like or a certain look. And a lot of times that is a more masculine look because that's just the aesthetic that I like. But I don't at all think that I have to look a certain masculine way any longer. But I think that's also because in the last years, I just met a lot of people who do so many different things. And then you start to realize like, no, there's no box I have to put myself in. Like, there's no reason for that at all.
Ah, that's wonderful to figure that out. So took us way, 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 way off. I'm sorry. We were talking about the night in Buenos Aires. It was your birthday. You were going to a drag show. So at this stage, had you done any performances or were you still in the exploratory phase?
No, I did three performances in Berlin before that. And so I was living in Leipzig, which is also in the east of Germany, but like an hour from Berlin. But there were no drag shows there. So I went, 3 times to Berlin to perform. And then I went to Buenos Aires.
Okay. So it was all still very new to you, but you knew this was what you wanted to be doing. So first of all, I know I'm going to cock up the pronunciation of this night. So why don't you tell us what it is?
So I think you want to go to the Carrera de Reyes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
But I have to tell you, and I'm sorry because that will take us to another like tiny road before we get there, that this show I went to on that night on my birthday wasn't actually that show. It was a different drag king show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but in the audience, there were all the people from that other show where I would participate in later. So it was still a way in, but that show wasn't actually that one.
Okay, but we're on the path. We're getting there. We are going to get there. So then talk me through this night then. So it was your first drag show in this brand new city. What do you remember?
I remember that I was very nervous because I was alone. I was like, no, people have friends. People go here with friends. I'm alone. I hope that nobody would notice. I tried to... I also tried to sort of communicate with people, which didn't work out too well. But I was always also very excited because I just, like I did 3 shows, but I still recently started knowing that drag kings existed and that it's a thing. So I was like very excited to see what people in Buenos Aires are doing because before that, maybe I saw some videos, maybe from New York or from what I knew in Germany. But then I was like, what's going to happen here? So very curious. And then I was honestly a little bit confused.
Ooh.
Yeah. Confused and also a little bit like sad or disappointed when I saw the show.
Oh.
Yeah, now comes a little bit of shade to that show. Because there were great performances. So there was like 2 hosts and then a bunch of people performing, I think maybe like 10 or something. And some performances were cute, were nice, some were impressive. But a lot of them were actually very stereotypical masculine. Or like, I think all of them were very stereotypical masculine. But some of them, I think, were like really reproducing violence in a way that was meant to be funny, but I thought it was just really off. I was just very confused because I had that sense, I was like, oh, like a lot of these performances really made me uncomfortable. And a lot of these jokes really made me uncomfortable. But I also still was like giving them the benefit of the doubt because I was like, maybe I got that wrong. Like, I don't know Spanish so well. Or maybe there's like a cultural thing that I'm not getting here. So, like, I shouldn't be so quick to judge. Like, I was very like, I was in a weird space.
But things looked up, right?
Yes, they did. Because, as I mentioned, there were other people in the audience. And these other people were also drag kings from Buenos Aires. And I knew some of them from Instagram. So I like followed them on Instagram already. And the next day, I was checking Instagram. And some of them had posted like critiques about the show. Like the same critiques that I had had. And I was like, oh, I wasn't wrong. So people were there and also felt the same way, posting about what kind of violence was reproduced in the show and what kind of masculinity was reproduced in the show and how that could trigger a lot of people. And so there was like some very good, nice criticism. And then I was like, yes, okay, so there are people who I feel like are my people, sort of.
Ah, and is that how you started talking to them, or had you spoken to them at the night before?
No, I didn't. I wanted to, but I couldn't. I couldn't walk up to them. I was too shy.
You were as scared as I would be. Yeah.
Yeah, I was too scared. Also, they looked very cool. They had like very cool outfits, and I was just there, still with a jet lag. I didn't put on makeup or like a drag outfit, and they just looked like a very cool bunch of people. And I was like, no, I can't.
But if you told them it was your birthday, they would have to be nice to you.
That's true. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
For sure. Yeah, so no, but then on the next day, I replied to those Instagram posts, actually. And I replied to that saying, hey, I was there too, and I felt the same. Like, thanks for making that visible. And then so, like that, I started talking to a bunch of people there.
Ah, and so what happened from there then? Did they invite you out? Or did you invite yourself out? How do you do this with people? I don't know how to make friends.
I also didn't. So I didn't like invite myself or like ask for I didn't ask for friendship right away. But they did then let me know that they were planning this other event, which is called Carrera de Reyes.
Carrera de Reyes?
Yeah, like Carrera is race, the Reyes of the kings.
De Reyes, okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to get it.
But that's also like the very Argentinian pronunciation. Because like in Spanish, usually you would say Reyes. But in Argentina, they put like a sh where the I is. So instead of yo me llamo, they would say yo me llamo. So it's like also, you're learning the Argentinian version of how to pronounce this, is what I'm saying.
Well, I'll forget it in 30 seconds, so it doesn't really matter.
Perfect. So yeah, but they were like, I think I talked to 2 people or 3 maybe, and they were telling me that they were doing this other event and that it's also free for people to join, and that it's like a competitive show where you have like 10 people competing, and in the end there's the winner of the night. Mm-hmm. And so they told me that I could participate there, and then I was like, okay, yes, I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna participate, also hoping to make some friends there.
And so what number did you prepare?
I bought probably like 100 tampons.
Mm-hmm, of course.
Of course. And it's funny to think about because I wouldn't do that show now, but it's still a good show. So it was a comment on menstruation, obviously. And I had these fishnet, what's it called? Not socks.
Stockings.
Yes. And I put the tampons all there. So it was a little bit like tampon trousers. Over that, I had like other pants and like a suit, and then I think it was like the song is like Bleeding Out by Imagine Dragons.
Okay.
It starts with like, I'm bleeding out. This last thing that I do is bring you down. I'm bleeding out for you. Like something like that. And then I don't know, I would start the song and I would open my mouth and then blood would come out of my mouth and then I would like rip off the shirt and then there was like things with blood and then I would rip off my pants and then under the pants there were like these tampon stockings, and so it was like all around blood and menstruation and yeah.
Oh. And so it was a competition. Where did you place?
I didn't win, but actually a very, very good friend of mine, Andy, won that night, that like later would become a good friend. I don't think they had like second or third place or anything. So I think there was
it
just
was just
a winner
and losers. Oh, so you were a loser.
Yeah.
Oh.
I was a loser. Yeah. Sadly.
But the really good thing about performing is that then gives an opportunity for people to start conversations with you.
Definitely. Yeah. And that was actually then that night quite easy, I think. The good thing is that I came to Buenos Aires in a moment where this show, they did it before, but it was like a few times. And everyone who was performing on that night was like their second or like third or maybe first time performing. So all the performers were kind of like in need of some drag connections. So it wasn't like an established group. And I think that I was very lucky there because everyone was kind of craving contact, especially in the group of performers. So that's why I think it was easy then after the show to like keep talking and ask each other about drag and how they got to do drag and what they want to do and like all these kind of things. And I ended up talking to two people. The one of them was Andy, the person who won, and the other one was Tom. And yeah, we talked a lot. And I think maybe even like directly after the show or something, we did like a WhatsApp group. And then, you know, when you're in a WhatsApp group, like, I got it. Like we can be friends.
Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So then what did you learn from going to that night and from taking part?
What did I learn? I mean, a lot of things. The first thing that comes to mind is that, so there's like a team of people who organized it, but one of the most prominent figures of that team, I would say, because it was also the host, is a drag king called Armando Abruno. And he put so much dedication and love into that show. And in the beginning, when they started, it was just there would be like 5 people in the audience. They would get the small back room of the venue. It was like really nothing. I mean, it was a lot for the people who were there, but it was nothing in the sense of like, he worked his ass off for something where like 5 people would watch and the music wouldn't work. And then by the time I got there, it was already significantly bigger. But then still in these like 4 months that I was there, I still like saw it growing, and not only in size, but like growing in the sense of like building a drag king community of people who were performing, people who were fans of the people who were performing, or fans of drag kings in general. And so I think when you ask me what did I learn, I think I learned a lot about dedication to a thing that's important to you and like sticking to it and with it, because I think I can easily be distracted by other things because I can be very passionate about a lot of things at the same time. So I don't know, the other night I went roller skating and then I thought, I have to buy roller skates now and become the best roller skater. And so I get distracted a lot, especially when things like don't work out from the beginning. But I think there were a lot of people, and not only Armando and the team who built the show, but also other drag kings performing. Like there were a lot of people who I think started out with like, this is like such a cliche sentence, but like started out with very little and then grew to really do like very nice and profound and very good performances and like pushed themselves in that sense. And I think that's something I learned there for sure.
And then so you left, you went back to Germany after your internship ended. At what point I'm going to try and say it here, just hang on, Carrera de Reyes.
Very well. I think that was great.
Oh, good. So at what point did that stop running?
I think it must have been maybe 2 years after I left, or 1.5 years after I left.
Okay. So do you remember hearing that it was going to be stopping? Or was it one of those things that 1 month they just didn't do it and then they never got back to doing it?
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't at all. At the end of a year, they did a competition of all the kings who won competing against each other. So then there would be like the king of the year. And I remember that the last year they did this last show also saying that this would be then the end of Carrera de Reyes. So there was really like a big ending. So I went there in 2019. Then, as we all know, 2020, the pandemic started. And then so in 2020, they did the show online. So I actually participated online in 2020, even though I wasn't there, which was also kind of fun then in that sense to be able to be part of it again. And then in 2021, at a certain point, they did live performances again. But definitely the last show where the kings of that year competed against each other, that was again like a live performance. And I remember very clearly how I saw that post on Instagram that then after that it would stop. And I remember that I was very shocked because in my mind, I always thought, one day I'm going to go back to Buenos Aires and perform there again. And then I realized that that's not going to happen. And I was very sad because even though like it's very far away and I didn't know when I could go back there, I just always thought it would happen someday.
Yeah.
And then I knew that it wouldn't. And that was very sad.
Oh.
Yeah.
So what do you think Buenos Aires has lost?
I think it has lost the opportunity for a lot of new people getting into drag to just try it out, try themselves out in that space, to like start off and to experiment with their bodies and their performance and thereby just like creating like new stuff. I think it was a lot of that because since there weren't like experienced drag kings at the time, the most of the people who were there were just like newbies like myself. And I think a lot of people appreciated that as well. Like maybe then the shows wouldn't be so professional, but I think the audience and the people participating appreciated that way it could be a space to try things out. When I went back in January, I actually asked a friend who performed with me in that year, but now is not performing anymore, like how they feel about it and why they're not performing anymore. And they said just that. They said like, I feel like there are still spaces with drag, but all these spaces seem very professional and I have a day job. I don't do drag professionally. I don't feel like those are my spaces, so I don't do it anymore, which I think is understandable, but also sad because it's fun to do it also in a non-professional and more like, spontaneous, hectic way, and to still be like sort of vulnerable in that way on stage.
Yeah, and finding that way of expressing yourself that's outside of your norm.
Yeah.
So generally at the end of an interview, I ask someone to look back on who they were at the time that they went to a venue or they went to a night or they were participating in a community and give themselves advice. But I think 2019 is not that long ago in the grand scheme of things. So I'm not going to ask you to do that, but I am going to ask you to do something a bit experimental.
Oh, wow. Okay.
To take all the time that you want. If I were to say, okay, we're opening up Carrera de Reyes for one night only, and I want you to come and perform, what would your performance be?
Ooh, what a question. What would it be? Honestly, I think it would have to be a partner performance with my friend Andy, who's the one I mentioned before, which is still a very, very close friend of mine. And I mean, I think that friendship is, in the end, for my personal life, the most important thing that I took from that time. Because Andy was also very inspiring in how Andy's living his queerness and his drag and in everything that he's doing. And I think it would definitely have to be a performance together with him. And I think we would do something fun. The first thing that comes to my mind is that we have this, like a classic joke that we always start fighting like a heterosexual couple. Like when we are in a supermarket or like doing like random stuff that is like very casual stuff that people go to the supermarket, like cook something, then we would start fighting as a couple, and then we would get into these super heterosexual characters and like, I don't know, act as if we have a baby, and you have like a very stereotypical masculine and feminine role, and we kind of play around with that. I don't know. Maybe we would do something with that. I think it would mostly be just like sharing our humor the way we like to share it like in private, and just like bring that on stage. I think that's the first thing that comes to my mind.
It sounds like you've got this planned already.
Yeah, I mean, we really do that like when we meet each other, or also when we just talk on the phone. We have these characters locked and ready to to be shown.
Do you have any memories of Carrera de Reyes? Did I say that right? Or clubbing from your own queer scene that you want to share? Well, if you do, why not get in touch? I want to create the biggest online record of people's memories and stories of queer clubbing, but I need your help. Go to lostspacespodcast.com, find the section Share a Lost Space, and then tell me all about what it is you got up to. And if you want, you can share your embarrassing photos, because I do love to see embarrassing photos, especially if they are from circa 2005 to 2007. Ooh, vintage years. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, where my handle is Lost Spaces Pod. Find out more about Maria by following them on Instagram, Maria Moschus, and that's MariaMoschus. And whilst you're there, make sure that you take the time to scroll through the photos from the Carrera de Reyes Instagram page. And that profile is at Carrera de Reyes, okay? And that is spelled, here we go, CARRERADEREYES, okay? If you like this episode, I would really appreciate if you subscribed, left a review on your podcast platform of choice, or just told other people who you think might be interested in giving it a little listen too. My name is Kay Anderson, and you have been listening to Lost Spaces.